Well, tonight we got Lucas on. We're going to talk about dwarfs. We're going to talk about super dwarfs, retic stuff, all kinds of good things and whatnot. But before we get started, I want to say thank you to everybody that's going to possibly check this out. That's going to join us this evening. Also, like every video, I talk about US Arc. Hopefully, if you're not a member, you'll become a member or donate or something. Just for the simple fact that they're the only ones that we have fighting for us right now. Um, so that being said, Lucas, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
It's been a while. It's been a while. We've been trying to do this for a minute, and yeah, we're finally doing it. So that's good.
Life gets in the way.
Yeah, yeah. I guess go ahead and just. I mean, I'm sure you got all your fans are going to be on here, so they're going to know everything about you, whatnot. But go ahead, man. Let us know. Talk to us a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So funny thing is I don't know how many people actually know my story, my background when I got into snakes. So I appreciate you giving me that platform to kind of share where I started my passion for this. But yeah, my name's Lucas, own Lab Exotics. Only been breeding for a couple years now. Those 2 years have been a up and down roller coaster, and I got a big taste of what it's like to breed retics, both the good side and bad side. And yeah, I've been keeping snakes since I was a kid. Just that whole classic cliche. Been keeping snakes since I was 5 years old. My first snake was a red Florida rat snake. Brought it home 3 weeks later. Went to go feed it again. Opened up the enclosure. We're digging around the substrate. Went missing. Didn't have another snake until we moved over to Miami, and I was about 6 years old, and I got all my snakes when I was in Miami. I got from Snakes on Sunset. I got my first ball python um, at 6, and then around the age of 12, I started getting into like morphs of ball pythons. I got spiders, bumblebees, pastels, kind of back in the day. Um, in like the 2006, 2000 to 10 era, that was still very popular. And now pastels is basically in everything. But so around that age is when I like was looking into and wanting to like breed snakes, and not so much as a monetary financial aspect, but just because I thought breeding snakes was the coolest thing ever. And I got into a bunch of different species. I kept some Borrelia, so some carpet pythons. I had a coastal carpet. I kept a Burmese python and Argentine boa that were imports at the time. I don't know that for a fact, but based on their health when I got them and being from Snakes on Sunset, and they did a lot of importing, and this was prior to 2010, more than likely they were imports. And yeah, I ended up donating my Burmese python when I moved back to Sarasota to the Miami-Dade Zoo. Don't know if they ever put on display. I have not been back to the zoo then. I kept in touch with them for a few years after, and they always said Snake was doing good. But um, so yeah, and I went off to college, tried having my parents keep my snakes, didn't work out well. They did not like feeding it and cleaning after it, and so we rehomed them, and that was when I was about 18, and I got into retics. So yeah, retics is always something that I was fascinated with. I remember seeing magazines back in the day with Bali yellowheads in the front of those magazines, and being obsessed with just retics, and knowing that I'd never be able to keep one because they were tiny. I mean, well, just kidding, they were large. So it was always a dream of mine. And then on the forums back in the day, snakes.com forum, a lot of it was UK based, but I ran into a Honey Island reticulated python, and I was like, what the hell is this? And found out that there were retics that stayed smaller, and that kind of gave me hope. And in 2018, I got my first retic. Was a pure Coyote locality that Samson over at Slither produced. I think he was the first one that produced a Coyote clutch in 2018 for like nearly a decade. Um, and yeah, I got my hands on one of those, and in 2020 I only had 2 retics, and here we are in 2022, and I have 18.
Awesome. So where was going to go? Okay, so you're definitely most of the animals that you keep retic wise is they're all like dwarf or SD, right?
Um, yeah, so you can consider them to all of them being in the small medium sized range of localities. So Ternate being a medium sized locality for the most part of what we know and all the observation that's out there. Kayuwadi, Kalatoa, some crosses along those lines of those things, a Madu cross. The only one that arguably is considered a mainland. Well, okay, I have the Ocelot mainland, but the other only locality that I own that is still arguable is one of those Mindanao, Philippines. I know they're from the southern side of the Philippine, which is known to be a more manageable size than the large northern where you find the tribal stuff from. So I have a pair of those. Have that are both 4 years old, and the female is um, like 8 feet at 4 years old. Hopefully, trying to get her to go this year. So
Awesome, good stuff. Do you so moving forward with not with everything that you're doing, are you pretty much just gonna stick with the dwarf side of things, or is that mainly your goal and what your focus is? Are you minus the ocelot do you have? Um, are you gonna possibly get into some other mainland stuff or just
yeah, definitely. I don't know if I'm going to breed mainlands, just because number one, uh, I don't think everyone should own a mainland. And I don't want to be the one to sell it and make that mistake to selling it to someone who ends up neglecting it. Plus, clutch sizes of 50 snakes is not always fun and easy to move. But so my passion is really lies in locality. That's my love, my passion. There's something about bringing the wild into your home that I'm obsessed with. Anytime, I love my ocelot that I got from Aubrey. Just a stunning animal, my favorite morph out there. But there's just a connection that when I hold my locality animals, it's different. So, um, my favorite, no one ever really asked me what my favorite locality is, but it's actually a mainland. It's a yellowhead Bali. So
good
I
stuff?
definitely will own one of those in my time. Probably won't get a pair. Just looking to get either a male or female. I think it'd be cool to get a Bali yellowhead male and take that male and bring it into the smaller stuff and really selectively try to breed for a bright. Could you imagine like a 50% or 75% Kalatoa that just had a crazy yellowhead?
It could happen.
Yeah, so ambitious goals like that, but really locality is where it lies. So um you know, in a perfect world, my goal would be to own anywhere between 8 and 10 localities. Right now, I'm at five, gonna be six here in like a month or so. I got a pair of Halmas coming in. Um, so yeah, I mean, Dwarf and Super Dwarfs are what brought me on, but after owning them and kind of getting rid of that whole idea that really retics and the monster size retics are like far and few in between, right? Everyone says that they're these giant, massive snakes, but in reality, in the United States, the average mainland probably gets 14 feet. You don't see a lot of the really big stuff anymore. So I've gotten over that fear when I was a kid about not wanting a big retic, and I have a 14-foot Solaire now, and she's one of my favorite animals just because of her size. It's awesome. So but ideally, yeah, I'd like to take the larger locality stuff if I have them and just shrink them down and make them a manageable size. Like a lot of people think a 12-foot retic is out of the question, but 12-foot retic is for a lot of people a manageable snake.
True, true. But that's still a big snake, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
But I
that's
mean, to be honest, even the pure super door stuff, by the time they're 10 years old, a lot of them are pushing 8 to 10 feet, and a 10-foot retic is a big snake. It's not a small snake by any means.
I asked that question because that's going to lead into some other stuff later.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, man, I can agree with you 100% about locality stuff. I mean, I've been doing this for a minute, and I mean, I love all retics. For me, it doesn't. I love them all. Um, but localities. are definitely. I mean, there's something about them having something pure.
Hmm.
It's just something about it. I can agree with you 100%, and especially now where we are now here, especially here in the United States, the localities that we have. I mean, that's what we have.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not getting anything else unless legally. Let's put it this way: we're not going to get anything. We're not getting anything else legally.
Yeah.
So what we have is pretty. It's precious. It's up to us, people who actually have a true passion. You know, you're totally in the localities and whatnot. It is up to us to try to keep them around and whatnot, and
Preserve them, right?
exactly, keep the bloodline going, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yes, sir, yes, sir. That's good stuff. What you want to talk about? Some of the, I mean, you had a clutch. You've had some clutches not too long ago.
Yeah.
Um,
So I had a wild caught bear. Well, um, I have a wild caught female Kalatoa. I had a wild caught male Kalatoa at the time. I ended up selling him just because I ended up getting a captive bred TK Kalatoa male that is 1000% just more manageable. That male was a high stress male, and so I sold him to someone who has plenty of experience with wild caught animals and knows what he's doing and wanted to work with him. And me and that male, if I'm being honest, we just weren't a good fit. And let me tell you, for anyone who listens to this or who is listening, if you've been keeping retics for only 2 years, don't get a wild caught animal. I know everyone back in the day started with wild caughts, but that's a whole different story. But if you had the option to get a captive bred over a wild caught, it's a really cool experience owning wild caught. I love my female to death, but it's a handful for a lot of animals that are out there. So yeah, I hatched a clutch of F1 Kalatoa's new bloodline. The female, her first clutch, not in my possession. None of the babies survived, and then um, when I received her, she laid 28 eggs, and by the last month, I was down to 9 decent-looking eggs, and then we had that massive Texas snowstorm just wipe out my power, and it took me 18 hours to find a generator. Um, so just another tip for you guys. I know it doesn't seem like it can happen to you, but just get one. It's worth the 500-600 bucks to get one, just to ensure you have it ready to go. And I had two babies hatch, and one of them ended up dying about 5 months into being alive, and the other one I have, they were both females. The other one I have with me, and she's thriving, doing great. Did the same wild caught pairing last year, and ended up with she laid 26 eggs, and 16 made it, are thriving, and we're able to find homes for all the ones besides the two that I kept back.
awesome, that's good stuff.
I got a Coyote. My Coyote right now is going through it's her first. That's the first retic that I ever had. So it's really nice to see that come full cycle. She's going through the motions, putting males in there with her. They're arching. They're kind of, she's not fully off of food yet, but she's reserved with wanting to eat. So I'm fingers crossed. I'm doing a Coyote pairing that I'm doing a breedership loan with Theron Lance with Grassroot Reptiles. He sent me over his male. So super excited about that. And hopefully things go well with that. Yeah, and this year have a lot of things planned, a lot of females lined up that should be ready to go.
Awesome, that's good stuff. I'm actually glad you said what you said about the wild caught
Mhm.
stuff. Just because I
It's
don't
cool in
know.
theory.
I mean, it's. I'm not trying to. I don't know. It's like it's for me, just my opinion. There's a lot of people that have years of experience with captive bred stuff, and I always say that dealing with a captive bred animal that's being defensive or being aggressive is totally different than dealing with a wild caught
Yep.
animal that's being defensive or being aggressive. Um, so I don't know. I definitely don't know everything, and I'm not no expert by no damn means. But I'm glad you said that because there's a lot of people that I don't know. I don't think they. Just my opinion.
It's really hard to understand until you jump in and you do it. And even the wild caughts that I the male that I had and the female that I still have, still for the most part for wild caughts, are still amazing to work with versus some of the stuff you hear with the Sulas and things that were imported that were just, flat out, just defensive animals and did not like being in captivity. But I will say this: if anyone comes across the opportunity and they decide to jump in, my first 6 months with those wild caught Kalatoas, I learned more about keeping retics in those 6 months than I did in my previous like 2.5 years of keeping retics. They humbled me. They right off the bat told me that I don't know a damn thing about retics, and it was a very quick learning curve that I had to adapt to learn how to really read their body language and know what's up.
That's awesome, man. That's great advice. It's great advice coming from. I mean, you're telling everybody your backstory and whatnot, and you're fairly. I don't want to say fairly new or anything like that to retics, but just your history
I'm
with them,
new.
stuff like that.
I got 4.5 years experience. I'm new.
That's that's good advice. That's awesome. Because a lot of there, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that don't want to. They don't want to admit stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I don't know why. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but because we're supposed to be helping each other,
Yeah,
and real experiences. That's how we learn. Um, so
exactly.
you know what I mean. So
Yeah,
that's awesome.
those
Uh,
retics owned me for 3 months.
so what else? What else? What do you got? What do you got going on? If you want to, I mean, if you got you got some secrets back there you don't want to talk about, but
No, no, I'm a very big believer of I'm a no secrets kind of breeder. I know a lot of breeders like to kind of stay behind the scenes on projects they're working with because they are either trying to be the first to do it, don't want to be beat to it, or because they just for whatever reason it's not a right or wrong thing. But for me, uh, I'm an open book. If someone beats me to producing the first of something that I'm trying to produce the first of, that's okay. Guess what? I got less pressure because I don't have to set the price. So,
okay.
so yeah, no. So what my goals are? So this ocelot male I received, obviously, I'm working him, trying to get him fed up. My goal with my ocelot male is to selectively breed for ocelots with each locality animal that I have and really try to selectively breed for a locality that really represents ocelot amazing to try to bring out the best in ocelot. So yeah, I mean the Coyote pairing is what I'm working with. My ternate female is being a savage with food right now, so I'm considering if she breeds earlier in the year when the ocelot's not ready, I'm going to be doing pure ternates. Same story with the Philippine, pure Philippines with and if if the ocelot male is ready, I'd love to take the ocelot to the Philippine as well. And my Solayer girl, she was egg bound. She got rid of that last egg that she had, and she's putting on weight really well. After I took her to the vet, vet said that everything looked perfectly fine and she was healthy. If she gets up to weight, which I'm trying to get some weight on her, um, I don't have to breed her this year. And if she doesn't go or she doesn't have the weight, I'm not. But um, I won't mention with who just because I haven't really discussed with this individual if it's if they want it public, but I'm going to be doing a loan partnership and taking a 87.5% platinum Anri Super Dwarf to that Solayer. And if that doesn't end up working out and for whatever reason the partnership doesn't go through, I have a 50% Tom Belong and Male Phantom to take with her. So but most of my stuff right now I'm focusing on pure localities. So the Coyotes, the Philippines, the Ternates, my Kalatoa, really not going to try and intentionally cycle her. She's gone 3 years in a row for her first 3 times breeding. Like to give her the year off. So this year I don't think I'm going to be producing Kalatoa stuff. Um, if she goes off of food despite me not feeding her heavy and trying to cycle her or anything like that, if she goes off of food and she's going through the motions, I'm still up in the air of whether I put a male in with her or not, but I just don't want her to end up doing a Partho clutch or whatever the case may be, and her slugging out and it just being a waste if she's going to do it on her own anyways. And yeah, I mean, really, those are the 4, 5 main pairings that I'm planning on trying to get done this year.
That's awesome, man. That's good stuff. I love talking about localities and stuff like that, and people that are really passionate about, what I mean. Even if it's dwarf localities or whatever it may be, I think that's awesome what you're doing, for damn sure. Is there what do you in the future? Is there anything that you're looking to get possibly?
Yeah, so I mentioned that in a month I'm getting 1.1 Halmas.
Right.
I have to get a pair of Madus just because that Honey Island locality was what brought me into retics in the first place, and kind of that's like that nostalgic locality that I'm dying to get. So I'm on a wait list with those and just waiting for those to come to fruition. And I have a marble. I'm not trying to produce a bunch of morph related stuff. So I have a AML snow project that I plan to push for Super Dwarf stuff. So trying to produce Super Dwarf AML snows or snowmells. I don't know if anyone's termed that yet, but that's what I'm going to be calling them. Um, have a marble. I have a phantom. I'd really like to produce super phantoms at some point to see, just get my own experiment and see how likely they are to survive and see if they have the white snake curse with retics. Um, I'd love to work with blue hypos and take that into the super dwarf stuff. That's another morph that really drives me to want to bring down into the smaller size area. And really, man, I can name every locality. I want them all, but realistically, I just my belief in terms of breeding snakes for a source of income and trying to do this full time is I'm a true believer that the thing that kills people the most is not knowing their limit and just having a way too many snakes and way too much overhead. So my goal is to be very specific.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
No, I can't agree with you more. I think it would be nice if once again, it's my opinion. People can do with I do whatever you want to do. I mean, it's your money, your animals, so therefore you may do whatever. But my opinion, I think if and they don't even not even just retics, but just you know reptiles in general. If people would go into it, with that type of thinking, I think it'd be better for everybody. You know what I mean? Better for the hobby and everything.
I agree. There's that whole saying that it seems like people want to apply when convenient, but I think it applies to everything. It's quality over quantity, right?
Right.
Um, and yeah, I mean, just when you get into and have a massive overhead, it puts the pressure on you that you have to make snakes and you have to sell animals in order to even just stay afloat. Um, and so, and not only that, but just the fact that I grew from, in a matter of even just 1 year, I had, I think, 6 to 8 retics, and now I'm up to 18. Um, was definitely a wake up call of like, yeah, that what I was thinking when I first started this of not having too many snakes has never been more true.
Exactly. But, yeah, a lot of people they don't. It can get wild. It can get crazy real quick.
it
So
it went from cleaning and feeding 3 days a week to now it's 6 days. So if you plan to breed, you better love the downs.
what's your thoughts on? Well, I mean, I pretty much know what your thoughts. You just kind of explain kind of like what your thoughts are when it comes to breeding and stuff. And I don't know if there's anything like I wish new people coming into the hobby
Hmm.
uh, would think like that. It seems like, and I don't know. I guess what it is like I guess when you have new people that come to the Facebook pages and stuff like that, um, there's a lot of breeders or whatever, but they've been doing it for a very long time. But
Hmm.
that's what they see, and I don't know if they just automatically think that if they get a retic, they have to breed them or some shit. I don't know. Um,
No. Yeah, and that's very true. And I mean, I to be honest, I think that the snakes themselves work out those people who think they want to breed and then end up, those people are going to be weeded out that find out that breeding is a little overwhelming. I think it kind of does that in and of itself, and which is why you see a lot of breeders start and then don't hear much from them afterwards. But this year proved that, my Kalatoa clutch and where the price point of Kalatoas are prove that you can make a good income with the right animals. The financial income that I was able to gain just off of a single clutch of Kalatoa was seeing that come to fruition just kind of really brought that reality to my mind. But I think what people get into Facebook has become an Instagram, even more so now, has become a platform, I think, where people see what they don't have and want it, and they lose the appreciation for what they do have because they're always chasing the next thing that they see that they want. And I think that's where people don't even realize that they're like, oh, I want a retic, and then, end up having a lot
Yeah, it happens real quick.
real quick.
So I got a couple questions. So you dealing with dwarfs mainly and that kind of thing. Um, I hear this is something I don't necessarily agree with, so I want to just get your point of view. I hear a lot of times people saying um, that a dwarf is a safer alternative to keeping a mainland.
Okay. So
And
my thoughts on that.
yes,
Um, so a retic is a retic. Their feed response is their feed response. When they're having a bad day, they're having a bad day. Um, my experience now, I've only kept I had an orange glow male mainland that I kept for 3 years. And I'll say my engagements and interactions with him were always smooth, always chill. And this is based on very limited experience. So take this for what it is. But um, versus a lot of the super dwarf stuff can be a lot more on the move, a lot more.
Vladimir.
Yeah, flightier is that traditional word that we use to describe it. But I think a retic can be dangerous as far as the owner doesn't. It falls back on the owner. It's reading their behavior. It's learning how they think, because retics do think. You can clearly, visibly see it. I mean, like a blanket statement, I would say yes, a super dwarf is safer to keep than a mainland because a full grown super dwarf is going to pack a lot less of a punch than a full grown mainland in terms of a bite if you were to make a mistake. But at the end of the day, a 7-foot super dwarf male in breeding mode versus a 10-foot mainland male in breeding mode is going to F you up one way or another. if they decide that they're going to go into a breeding battle behavior and want to tell you what's up.
All right.
Um, I wouldn't say that retics are the safest snakes to own. There's always a risk of keeping a reticulated python just because of their ability to get to a decent size, even the super dwarf stuff. There's a misconception that I see all the time on super dwarf Facebook pages that my pure Kalatoa won't get more than 6 feet long when it's an adult, and then I send a picture of my wild caught female that's 9.5 feet, and I'm like, please explain this. Um, so at the end of the day, once you're messing with an animal that is 8 to 10 feet, if you don't know what you're doing or you misread your animal, an 8 to 10 foot snake is going to be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. But that's why I always recommend, like, if you haven't had a retic before, don't go buy a 10-foot snake. Get a baby, learn along with it, so that your mistakes are a lot less costly. But my personal experience, I've been bit in the 4.5 years keeping retics. I've been bit once, and it was literally like a month ago because I decided I was holding a new snake that I had and was holding it while I was cleaning, and I bent down too quick and it got me in the elbow. Fortunately, it wasn't a big animal, but I'm a true believer, especially now where, I really pride myself in knowing their behavior and being able to read that, which is why I prevented a bite for so long. I got cocky with a new snake, thought it was chill. But it's not a matter of if, but when.
Just never be complacent. That's my thing. Like I've never been. I mainly get bit by smaller animals,
Mhm.
babies and whatnot. I have been very lucky. Um, I guess like me when I walk in the room and I'm dealing with animals, I'm never letting myself become complacent. You know,
Yep.
and I think it's easy to and I can only speak for myself and the animals that I deal with or have dealt with. But I think it's easy for people to you get it to become complacent because well, I know these animals, this and that, blah blah blah. I can do this and I can do that, and when you start thinking like that, that's when something's going to happen. Even if it's just a little scrape, that you could have prevented that if don't get cocky. Exactly what you said. You know what I mean? Um, know your animals, read your animals, and no matter how long you've been with an animal, no matter how long or how well you think you can always learn something still from that animal.
Every day, every
So,
single day.
um,
The
but
the
no,
way that
huh? Go ahead.
I was going to say the way that I kind of have, when you go into your snake room, for those of you that have, a snake room with more than, a few retics, you'll go in there and your snakes are looking at you and they're observing you and they're learning you and they're watching your body language, and it's no different for me. I'm going in there, I'm observing them, I'm watching their body language, and the more time I spend in my snake room, the more I learn about them every single day. You never stop learning with these animals because not a single animal's the same, and their personalities on a day to day basis. Retics more than any other snake that I kept. Ball pythons are pretty predictable. Where retics, they have bad days just like we do as humans.
Yes, sir. Couldn't agree with you more. Now, but I guess the reason why I was asking, I brought that up is, when I hear stuff like that, and I'm actually, I got a dwarf guy on here, and we're talking right now, and I just, you know, I think average, you could have a dwarf. And I'm not talking about SD stuff, but a dwarf can easily 12 foot. Some,
Like I said, I have a 14-foot Slayer, and my Slayer from her 2013 clutch, she's the smallest one of all of her clutch mates.
and you mentioned it, and it's very true that. And I don't know if it's because of the lack of new blood coming in or all the uh, breeding with what we have, making morphs,
Hmm.
nonstop. I know the people that have actually large animals, um, but it's very few. And you, for somebody to say that, it doesn't make sense to me when somebody goes, well, basically, the smaller locality or whatever is a safer alternative. So you're telling me that a 12-foot animal couldn't possibly, I don't like talking about this, but I just want to prove a point or try to prove or my opinion about things, and what your thoughts are, that somebody who possibly doesn't know what they're doing or just not paying attention, a 12-foot, 14-foot animal couldn't possibly, I don't, kill you or, harm you in a bad
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, that's doable. I mean, that's doable with a sub 10-foot snake.
well, yeah, exactly. So when I hear that from people, and coming from people who are well known and whatnot, it's like you're telling me that, yeah, you can die, you know, from you, but you'll be deader if you keep a big, it's like, you know, I get it. It's always been, as long as I've been in doing this and whatnot, it has always been like a selling point, when it comes to, these animals, because it's a lot of people love the looks of a reticulated python, you know,
They're beautiful.
and you, if you're able to keep a smaller version of it, you know, that's very enticing, you know, to a lot of people, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Also have to think about the history of Super Dwarf and Dwarf. I'm trying my best to get away from labeling them that on my social media, but those terms were marketing terms when it first began, and that marketing term has worked to its fullest. To entice and get people on, which I think is a great thing. You know what I mean? I no, I don't think retics are for everyone, but if you think that you want a retic and you learn about retics and you want a retic, go for it. Have a mentor, have someone to talk to. Um, and if that means you getting a super dwarf to have a more manageable size retic, you know, absolutely. That's a great way to get into this industry and where the super dwarf market has been taking off. It's a good entry point. But I mean, when you're dealing with any large constrictor, super dwarfs included, um, there are the 6, 7 foot wild caught animals that exist. Garrett has several of them that are phenomenal examples of how manageably sized they can stay. Um, but that's I wouldn't say it's the norm for them. I think that you're going to have one snake from a clutch, a pure super dwarfs that get 6, 7 feet as an adult, maybe 8 feet, and some that get larger. But anytime you're dealing with a large constrictor, which is a reticulated python, I don't care what the locality is, there's risk to it, which is, and if you are scared of your retic after the first couple years and you keep it because the food response is intense or whatever the case may be, just be a responsible owner. Find another responsible owner to rehome that animal. Don't let pride get in the way of having to keep this animal that you feel unsafe around. But retics at the end of the day can make great pets as long as you become a great keeper and you understand your animal. It's not like a ball python where you can get away with, you know, uh, uh, a bite and it's not a big deal. Um, you 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 can get lucky and not get a bad bite from a 12-foot retic, or you can get very unlucky and go to the hospital because of a 12-foot retic.
I agree with you 100%. You know, talking about bites and whatnot, just it's easier said than done. But you know, I know people that have been bit by big retics, and they didn't do the damage that it would do to other people's because they're, I don't know, like I said, they just you know, really experienced, and they don't jerk away.
That's the big thing. Something that
Yeah.
I'm trying to, even with my hatchlings that I had, I was literally putting my finger in their face, like hoping that they would bite me, and they were just the sweetest, cutest little thing because I need to, again, I took my first bite and it was unexpected just a month ago. And so I didn't flinch or move away because I wasn't aware that it bit me. But when you have a snake in a defensive posture, it's a lot easier said than done to just not jerk back. That's a knee jerk reaction that I'm guilty of.
Yeah, well, if you want to get bit by a bunch of baby, go find somebody that has a bunch of baby berms. That'll do it for damn sure. No, that's great advice, man. That's awesome. I think it's I think it's pretty cool to have somebody on like yourself and that has that mentality. Um, I think that's good stuff right there. I think a lot of people, like I said, and I'm repeating myself, they come into this hobby. You know, I think one, you know, get the animal because you have a passion because you love them or whatever. You know what I mean? You want to learn, and if people, I think people, once again, my opinion, uh, stop having the mentality that you got to breed this or that. You know, uh, get a small animal and grow with it. Learn about it. You know,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
I
And
don't know.
that was my experience. I did a lot of reading and learning about them and everything, but at the end of the day, nothing prepares you for when you actually have it because you have it and you have to live with it and you got to learn with it. So start with a baby, start small, and yeah, I do think, and this isn't me trying to market my me being into dwarfs and super dwarfs, but now that there are no shortage of super dwarf crosses being offered, if you've never had a retic, you know, Go for something that is going to grow slower because a mainland can easily obtain 12 feet in a year if you feed that thing.
No, I can agree with you. Um, I always on there, like I said, this is my opinion. There's nothing wrong with have different opinions. Um, I think having a smaller locality and whatnot, I think that's great for a lot of people. But I would still advise anybody who is going to get a retake, even if it's a dwarf or SD, to have some type of experience. Just for the, I'm old school, and this is what we use as terms. All of my stuff that I used to have, they were flighty. They weren't being aggressive. They weren't being defensive or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. They're just flighty and stuff like that. But unfortunately, a lot of people will take that as being aggressive or whatever, being defensive or something like that. You know, that'd be my only thing is that I still think that, like I said, it's just my opinion. I don't know shit. Is that because of that, if you're not, if you don't have the experience or enough experience being around it, whatever the case may be, that's the only thing. Because having a flighty or jumpy or whatever animal can scare somebody or just make you nervous. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know if that
100%.
makes sense or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You
Oh,
want to know what's crazy? So I don't know if a lot of people know my background. So I study. I'm a professional counselor. And I nerd out about the neuropsychology and body language and all that kind of stuff. And so what a lot of people don't really think about and realize is what's a snake's main way of seeing? It's heat receptors, right? They pick up
yeah.
heat. So what's crazy is that people don't realize is that when we are relaxed and we are chill, our body temperature is warmer than when we're nervous. When we are nervous, our body temperature decreases because what happens is when we're in a state of nervousness, our brain is in a somewhat fight, flight, or freeze mode. And when our brain is in that mode, our blood is sent to our vital organs and away from our extremities. So our body looks cooler. I can only imagine that if a snake is able to see heat, it can see probably different degrees of heat, which is why when you feed a retic or you feed a snake, if you don't heat that animal up, it's going after you. It's not going after that rat, right? You put a frozen rat in front of a snake, it's going to go for your body and not the rat. And so people don't realize that if you're not calm around your snakes, your body temperature is cooler, and your snake, especially retics with how intelligent they are, if they see you in a sense of your body temperature being cooler and you're moving around kind of nervously, they learn that and they know that when your body is like that, this is my conceptualization just based off of the science behind our body temperatures when we are relaxed and when we're nervous. So if retics are as smart as we think they are, which I think we underestimate their intelligence, I think they're capable of picking up when we are nervous based off of their heat and not just our body movement. And so that's one thing to consider.
No, that's pretty cool right there. That's awesome. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna let you know I'm too redneck for all this shit that you're saying. Um, but no, that makes a lot of sense. Um, for damn sure. But I don't know. I just like I said, I'm not against anything. I mean, because I mean, like I love all retics. I've had dwarves. I've had they were all wild caught
People are
too.
sleeping on your history with owning Dwarf and Super Dwarf stuff.
But I've had them and whatnot, and I don't know, being old school and stuff like that. I think it's great now that we have localities, and I think I I agree with you. Kind of calling them by their locality is the correct way to do things now. But I guess old habits are hard to break.
Yeah, if I
Um,
know a locality, I want to call it by its locality. I will say it helps when you put the tag Super Dwarf and Dwarf when you're trying to make a sale, but I'm really trying to get out of that because I want to represent them for what they are and not what they were called in order to let people know, like, hey, this is a small animal. I want people to identify a Kalatoa is a small size retic. A Salayer Jampea are considered to be, for the most part, medium sized retics, and Sulawesi's, Javan, Borneos. etc., are large size retics. But if you know the locality of your animal, just represent its locality, and let's teach people that small, medium, large, or you know, um, we used the super dwarf and dwarf back in the day when we didn't care to know what locality was coming in, right? Now
Well,
that we know what localities that we have, why don't we just call them by the locality?
yeah, well, I think I don't, and I could have been a lot. A lot of us could have been lied to by all means,
Hmm.
but because I don't know. But I mean, from my knowledge and my experience, we didn't know what the locality was. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of the people that were getting these animals in, they weren't being told what island they were coming from, and because the people that were going out and catching the snakes, they didn't want to give up their hunting hole. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, but like I said, the people that were getting them in, um, they could have been lying about it. I mean, I don't know, but I mean,
Absolutely, and that's why I mean, from what I've been taught and told is when it comes to importers, the reputation of the importer is based off of their relationship with the exporter.
exactly,
Yeah, because an importer can be 100% honest and say these came in as such and such, but if they're not working with an exporter that they trust and know and have a relationship with, that exporter is probably aware, like, hey, these localities, these super dwarfs get more money when we sell them and bring them in, so let's just call everything that we're getting a Kalatoa.
exactly. See, I wish Chip was able to be. He's like a oh my god, he has a great memory, and my memory sucks. Because I'm trying to remember. I don't know if it was around 2012. I don't know, but somewhere around there, maybe a little bit before. It wasn't after. Um, I know I used to go up to Bob's a lot and everything, and I know around that time he was actually getting animals in with the locality, and
Hmm.
that was like new. That was
Hmm.
new because that was
To
you
my
know
knowledge, what I've been told is that started once we freaked out about no longer being able to import, and we had like a 2-year window of being able to actually import legit localities.
yeah, like I said, and I don't remember. It could have been I don't know somewhere 2010, some 2012, something like that. I remember um things being labeled as Madu and stuff like that, up at his and this was his old facility, not his new place. This is how long ago it was. I remember going up there and Jeff was working for him at the time, and we'd go to the back and I'd help separate like Sulas and Butans and stuff like that. Um, I ain't shit now.
That's sick.
At one point in time, I was people would, you know, ask me about locality shit and stuff like that
I
back
was a
in.
kid picking up rocks and picking up snakes outside when that shit was happening. I wish that I would have been able to experience that kind of stuff.
Oh, well, you're doing great stuff, man. You keep up with that mentality and stuff like that, man. You're gonna be killing it, and you're
Appreciate
gonna
it,
be
man.
doing some great stuff. I'm pretty sure. I have no doubt about that. Um, what about like percentages and stuff like that? I mean, it seems like that's always a good thing. And I guess my question is this: is that there's a lot of shady shit that's going in. Always has been. It's nothing new.
Hmm.
It has always been shady things going on. Always. What's your thoughts and about people using the wrong percentages and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
you
So,
think they should be called out?
um, yeah, I mean, anytime that someone is mislabeling an animal and it is, so my advice to people, and this also falls into answering your question. Um, if you're not buying from a extremely reputable breeder, or even if you are buying from a reputable breeder, you ask the breeder who produced the parents. You then go to the person who produced the parents, if it wasn't that breeder, and asked, hey, so and so said you produced the parents to this animal. You confirm that. you go as far back as you can and you try to get to the eventual point where you can communicate with someone who has information on the animals I brought in. I literally annoy a shit ton of people when I buy a snake because I almost bought a wild caught male Solayer from Blake Wilson. I was considering it, but after my last experience with the wild caught male, I was like, no, nah, I just don't want to do that again. And so I asked Blake where he got it from. I went to where he got it from. I asked, where'd you get it from? I then went to where he got it from. It led me to asking Rodney, and Rodney gave me information on the importer. And again, that's my process. And so if you do that, even with crosses, do that with crosses because it's easier to fake a 50% Kalatoa than it is to fake a pure Kalatoa because a 50% Kalatoa has so much variance of how it looks versus a Kalatoa being pretty distinctly if we can manage it. And pure Kalatoas don't go really far into generations, whereas, you know, the crosses can be crossed and crossed. But yeah, if people are intentionally lying about localities and that is a thing, I think being called out has this like negative stigma. um, there's people who handle things in two ways. There's you go on a public platform and you call them out, or you message them privately and you ask, "Hey, I know this shit about this animal. I know this about that, and you're saying it's this about that. Why is it? Why is this happening?" Right. So there's two ways to do it. Me personally, if I have a problem with someone, I'm gonna message them first and take it up with that person individually. Um, and that's just how I would handle that. But yeah, I mean anybody who's lying about locality crosses, number one, please stop. And number two, like, yeah, let's get the word out there because at the end of the day, a 62.5% Kalatoa, 25% Madu has bloodline that's still rare, and we shouldn't be lying about it. We should be trying to preserve that bloodline and selectively breed to enhance it with locality and morphs. And so yeah, if people are lying about locality and percentages, 100%. You know, message them, do whatever you need to, but we need to get that out of the hobby.
Well, yeah, and I guess I see that a lot in people that deal with dwarf or stuff like that, and that was leading up to like where do you see our hobby at, whether it's reptile hobby in a whole or just reticulated pythons. uh like I don't know, I'll let you say what you got to say, and then I'll put my opinion in, but like where do you see us now, and you know where do you see us going? What's your opinion on that?
So to be honest, so okay, let's remove the issue that's happening that USARC is fighting for our rights, right? Let's make the assumption that we're going to be able to keep our rights to own retics and to own snakes. But what I love seeing about the industry right now is that we have new keepers coming in that are in the mindset of wanting to do the most for each of their individual animals, and I love that. Um, there are new keepers out there that are investing a lot of money on caging, which I think is phenomenal. So to be honest, in terms of where I see it right now, is I actually see the retic market. I see mainland market right now is I think it's pretty steady in the sense that there are rare morphs that are only in mainlands that are driving the mainland market, and people are creating amazing crosses that we need to get into super dwarfs, right? And this is from a super dwarf mindset. Um, and I see the super dwarf and dwarf market booming. Um, and I see new keepers wanting to keep their snakes in more naturalistic, larger, cooler, bigger enclosures instead of keeping them in racks for a long time. And now I'm not bashing racks. I have an ARS 5.5 foot rack. I have 41 quart tub racks. I have hatchling racks. I don't diss the rack mindset at all. But what I see is new keepers wanting to do more and better. And to me, that makes me feel that the future of keeping these animals is going to be better than what we're doing now. Because if you look at where our standards are at versus where they're at over in Europe, we're behind. I mean, Europe even there are some countries and places that have laws that if you own a reticulated python, you need to have a minimum size enclosure. And I think that's pretty damn cool. Like I'm all for less governing, like leave me the hell alone. But at the same time, like for a governing body of government to say like this is what's right for this animal is pretty cool. Like it's backing up the ownership of the animal and wanting the country to continue to keep them, but also in the sense of like, don't keep a 16-foot retic in a 4-foot cage.
No, I agree with you 100%. Like I don't know. I was talking to Tom. That he's wonderful. Let me tell you. But anyhow, I
His
definitely
his his
from back
mindset.
when I didn't know shit from shit. A lot of people that well, there wasn't a whole lot of people that were dealing with retics back then, but the ones that were, I mean, we didn't know shit from shit. We were building shit out of wood
I love seeing pictures of the old school
and
like cages.
and you know we learned so much, and it's exactly like you said. Everybody, I can't say everybody, but a lot of people, even the people that have been doing this for a while, are always trying to do better, always, and I think that's great. That's great to see. It's great to hear. It's definitely great to see because a lot of people can say a lot of shit, but in all reality, they're not doing anything. But there's more people that are actually wanting to do better with their animals, bigger cages, this and that, and it's awesome. I think it's
Well,
awesome.
Wildfire Retic, Weston, he posted that video of him getting those 10-foot cages. For the first time he got those in, and I swear within that year of him posting that video, I saw a lot of people getting 10-foot enclosures, right? Like, it takes a few people to kind of step up and do things to try to explain why it's better for the animal. But, and at the same time, there are specific retics that like just are safer and do better and are less stress and smaller type of, I mean, again, every retic is an individual.
Yeah,
You can make the argument that if you put your retic outside, if you live in Florida and you keep it in a 20 by 20 place, it'll never be a mean snake because you're giving it. And to what Tom was saying on your show, like I don't think his mindset of what he is saying on how to keep retics that way is wrong. I think it's a phenomenal way, but to say that that's the only way is where I have the that's where it conflicts because people can keep the retics in a 6-foot enclosure and it be a 15-foot snake, and ideally you'd want bigger than that. But if you take that snake out, give it the exercise, and that snake is sweet and healthy and thriving, then um, I'm not going to cut people down for them having a healthy, happy snake.
well, that's where knowing your animals,
100%. My orange
being,
glow was a pusher, and so I got him a bigger enclosure. He stopped pushing. Right.
and I've seen it happen, uh, vice versa.
Yeah.
It
No.
just
100%.
depends on the animal. I don't know. I've always, with everything going on and stuff like that, because there's a lot of things that, like I said, my opinion is my opinion, and that doesn't mean that I'm right or anything like that. But with the things that are going on and stuff like that, I mean, I don't know. I do feel my opinion is I feel like we should police ourselves a lot harder than what we do.
100%.
Uh,
Hold
and
people accountable.
it's not drama. I hate drama. I don't want to have nothing to do with drama. I don't like that shit. Some people may say that I do because I'm loud or I'm outspoken or I just say what's on my mind, but that doesn't mean I like drama. It just means that I'm just gonna say what whatever. But
Yep.
the whole calling out people and stuff like that. I don't believe that we should just call people out to call them out and stuff like that. But some people, I mean, if they're not good for the hobby and they're going to bring us down, if they're going to possibly help force more laws and stuff like that, I think they should be called out. This is my opinion, and get them gone.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I think, and again, each person has their way to call people out, and none of it is right. None of it's wrong. It's just the way that some people handle things. And um, I'm a firm believer that if someone behaves in a way to speak up against something that's wrong, the way that they behave is justified based on their experiences. But yeah, at the end of the day, if people are um, people are bringing our hobby down. I mean, you of all people know, being in this hobby for as long as you have been, there's never been a time where our hobby needs more positivity. And when we have people that are bringing it down time after time, um, I'm a believer that those people will eventually work themselves out of the hobby. But
Most of the time, but I mean, I can tell you there's still some around. And the thing about it is, what's different because it's always been in the hobby, always. The difference is, like I preach this, or like I said, once again, this is my opinion, it's my theory, it's the way I think. Back in the day, you didn't know what was going on outside of your circle.
mhm,
There wasn't Facebook. You didn't know what was going on until you were at a show or whatever the case may be, and there was more people around. And then
yep.
you heard gossip or whatever it was, but you didn't. You know, I s- first I want to say that I still believe that there's more good people in this hobby than bad. By
Oh,
all means,
100%.
there's
I've
a
always been
lot
a
of
firm believer if you
great
surround
people.
yourself with the positive people, then the hobby's a positive place, right?
Oh, by all means, and but with social media and stuff like that, you're able to see everything. Yeah, everybody has an opinion. Everybody this that, and every I say call people out, and that's what people do. But I only think that people should be called out if it's for a good, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
People call people out 24/7, so it looks bad. You know what I mean? And like I said, that's the difference. Because there's always been shitty people, all kinds of stuff has been always the same bad stuff that was going on now was going on back in the day. It's just the
Yep.
only difference is that there's social media and stuff like that. And like I said, you didn't know it was, what did it say, ignorance is bliss or whatever.
Mhm.
You didn't know what was going on outside your circle. You didn't know.
No.
You only knew
No.
what was going on then. Um, but yeah, I don't know with social media and stuff like that. It's good and bad. I feel like I mean it's here. It's not going to go away. You know,
Mhm.
so use it for good.
Yeah, exactly. And if people think that someone is negative to the hobby, you want to know the easiest way to get them out of the hobby, or to at least get them to learn to try and change to be more positive in the hobby?
So leave them alone. Ignore them. Leave them alone.
Stop
Take
buying their
everything away.
animals.
Yeah, you leave them alone.
Stop
Don't
buying
get
their animals.
exactly.
I don't care if it's a world's first. I don't care if anything. If you don't like them because they are representing negative in the hobby and they're contributing to possibly laws being against stuff, just don't support them. If our everybody who is a breeder, especially for those that rely on their income, um, if you don't support them, they don't have money coming in. They have to make a decision. Do I change my behavior? And do I change the way I keep my animals? And do I change the content that I post in order for people to begin to like me? Or do I get out of retics? There's only those options.
Oh fucking shit. Um, yeah, no, I agree with you. Definitely. Um, and it's true. What do they say? Ignore them, ignore people.
Hmm.
Don't give them any attention, and they'll go
Hmm.
away. And
Yeah,
it's
it's like
true.
raising a kid, right?
Yeah. Uh,
Ignore the bad behavior, they'll stop it.
it's hard. It's hard to though when there's a lot of us that have like a true passion that this is not just trying to make a dollar or anything like that. Anybody who says that they don't want to make any money, if you're actually going to breed or whatever like that, you're lying because at the end of the day, if you can pull money in to upgrade your caging and you know buy your feeders and stuff like that, and it's not coming out of your bank account, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
great. That's
Yeah.
great and stuff like that. But there's a lot of people that that have a true passion for these animals,
Yeah.
and
I like
yeah,
Chip's comment. I'm looking at Chip's comment. Too many
yeah,
puppies. Um, yeah, yeah. The mass production. I mean, if we're being honest with mass production, you can only produce so many snakes until the quality of the lives of the snakes start to decline.
exactly. And I think there's an issue. Like there's like Chip and I we talk all the time, and there's we were talking a few days ago talking about like 10 years, even 5 years from now, because of like we think we know what's going on with these animals, but we don't. I mean, we don't. You know what I mean? Like we know that if we put this and this together, we're supposed to get that, or whatever the case may be. You know, if this gene and this gene here gets that, but we don't necessarily know what's going to happen when we mix all these genes together. You know what I mean?
Mm-mm.
Um,
You get an orange snake.
within the, you know what I mean, like uh, health wise and stuff like that. I mean, we're seeing uh, things that are happening, even if it's just little, things that are happening and stuff
It
like
didn't
that.
take long for the super tigers and tigers to have that nice fork tongue.
Yeah,
The not the fork tongue, but the little nice bend, whatever it
yeah,
is.
yeah. So there's, I don't know. There's so much that we're gonna learn and find out, and like I said, I think we need to, once again, just my opinion and the way I think, everybody they want to make a name for themselves or something like that, and at the end of the day, I don't think it. I mean, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I got caught up in that a couple years ago when I wanted to breed and really establish myself as a name and wanting to do that. And we had a conversation like 6 months back that really struck. Guys, James is a wise person when it comes to keeping retics, and you said something to me that really struck. And it's like you can try hard to make a name for yourself, um, but if you don't have a passion and love for what you're doing, that name's not going to come. And so it all starts if you just love your animals, you take care of them, and you treat them well, you breed them, and you just love and you express that love for the animals. The name follows, right? Because that's what we need, and that's what you said to me. And I got off the phone with you that day, and I was like, damn, like absolutely. And I mean, yeah, I mean, you said that, and I was like, duh, common sense, right? That's like in the back of my mind. But when people are getting into breeding, it's like, I want to separate myself. I want to do this. I want to do that. Um, and if you have that mindset, you get lost in what brought you to. My wife's burning something. I don't know if you can hear the fire alarm.
Dinner's ready.
But yeah, anyway, so that's what it comes down to is just making sure. Do you mind if I turn that off real quick?
Do what you gotta do, man.
Give me 1 second.
All right. Now, just to touch on what he was or saying or whatever, it's true. I mean, at the end of the day, there's there's only one Bob, there's only one Jay, there's only one Kevin, and once they're gone, I don't. My opinion is that there's never going to be another Bob or Jay or Kevin. Um, the majority of us, we have a real job. You know, this is just like a hobby or something like that. And then if you make something, you make something. Um, so I
Do
mean,
I
just
do I think it's possible? Sorry, I just jumped in. Because Chip saying I don't care about making money with the stakes. You know what? What's crazy about that is like I agree because I know I'm getting into localities and I have a passion for it. And I know a lot of people don't share that same passion. They like the morph stuff. And so I know some of my localities, like Philippines, for example, are going to be harder to move unless we start to show them off and bring a light to them. Um, but at the end of the day, I'm going to still produce my pure localities, whether people want to buy them or not, because I love doing that. But it is nice, and I think it's 100% possible to make a living breeding retics. And again, I think where people mess up is just getting way in over their head, having way too much overhead, and that eating up everything. And then when you have a bad missed season, you're in debt, and it hits you and beats you up. You can make a living with breeding retics, absolutely. You just have to be very selective and have a passion and express that passion so that you can spread that passion to other people. Um, by the way, the house is not on fire, so we're good.
well, I would hope you weren't me sitting there talking about retics if shit was. But no, I agree with you because I guess you could if you. I mean, anything's possible if you put your mind to it. You're right. I mean, people you always hear that shit, and on the most part, it's true. Um, you have a good plan and you execute, stay focused. You know, do everything for the right reasons and everything usually falls in place. So
Yeah, 100%. Theron over here.
Yep, yep.
If you want jams, get some jams. He produced some sick ass pure anery jams that look amazing. Um,
Man, I tell you what y'all are doing with Theron's. I mean, that's amazing. It's good on him. Congratulations, dude. Man, if I knew, oh my god, like everybody says, like goddamn, if I knew that what's all this shit that was happening now, I would have done things so
let
differently.
let me ask you a question, and that's a question that I actually wanted to ask you before we were going to end this. If you don't mind me asking you a question right now,
Go ahead.
I want to ask you if you could go back in time and start over, what would you do different? Because you've been in the hobby for a very long time, and I know that you got into some things with some people that
Uh,
pissed. So I want to know, like, what
number
would you go
number
back and
one,
do?
number one thing is that I would have done it on my own.
Hmm.
Not that I would not have um talked to people and stuff like that, but I would have done it all on my own. I wouldn't have did what I did. Things would be different for me if I would have done that.
Absolutely.
Not that I'm thinking I'm, in a bad place or anything like that.
No, if anyone knows the context of what you're referring to, I would agree 100%.
So,
Yeah. Would you have done anything differently as far as how you kept them, what you did for your animals, how you would
well,
have bred them?
well, yeah. I mean, because we know so much more now.
Hmm.
There wasn't any. The literature that we had back then was horseshit. Basically, and it was very little. Um, and when we were doing it, there was also very few people that were dealing with them. So we were learning on our own. Making a lot of mistakes
Hmm.
and everything. But yeah, I mean, the the technology is better. I mean, everything. There's more knowledge and everything. So of course, I would, you know, house them differently. I mean, it's just would have done all kinds of things differently by all means. I mean that's another hour, 2 hours topic right there.
100%. 100%.
Um,
I think what a lot of people and that's where like the mindset of where like I want new keepers that want to breed um to be able to hear some of those things about what they would do differently because um if you plan to breed moving forward, like my biggest advice to people is plan for the future and try not to look back 10 years and say I would have done this differently, and try to plan so that you're keeping your retics and housing your retics and feeding and breeding and doing them in a way where you can look back and say, no, I did things right. Because I think even for me, I've only been doing this for a little bit, there's still some things that I'm trying to change about what I'm doing. And I think for people that have been keeping them as long as people like you and Chip, um, yeah, we can look back because back then you guys didn't have a lot of information. I mean, you guys were dealing with animals that were wild caught. That I mean, you guys were part of the foundation of why we have such an established, amazing, captive bred animals. So, it's crazy. You and Chip don't get the recognition that a lot of these other like people who've
well,
been keeping them for a long time. But
there's a
I
few others like us. It's not just me and him, but if you listen to Tom, he's the only one that's ever done anything. But
yep.
that's a different story too. But
No, but I appreciate everything that you guys did to pave the way to where we're at today.
yeah, I'm very humble. Like I really am. Like,
You look really uncomfortable right now.
well, I am because I ain't shit and whatever. And I don't, but if you're learning from your mistakes, then you're doing good. You know what I mean? Like you had, what would I do differently? Oh, minus, you know, doing it on my own, but I would have took better notes. Um, there's so much that I have forgotten. Like I don't know. That probably doesn't make any sense, but I mean, I wish I had taken. I didn't know. Nobody knew that this was going to be going on, and nobody, who would have thought that we would be where we are today. And I'm not talking about with the laws and politicians, just, where we are with these animals. You know, who would have ever thought back then that now when you're dealing with reticulated pythons, when you if you're breeding them, that you now you kind of look at them on a breeding standpoint, kind of like ball pythons, because there's so many different morphs, colors, all these mutations. You can pretty much make what you want to look at. You know what I mean. So if it just, oh my god, like I just wish I would have took better notes. And I would have. I didn't care about any of this. It was all about, and still is. Just the passion of these awesome animals and dealing with them, and learning as much as you can.
Yeah,
That's. I mean,
100%. I think note taking, I get obsessive over it. I was talking to Aubrey Pruitt. I've been getting some input on him on best feeding methods to get this mainland male, ocelot up to a good size to try to breed in a relatively good amount of time. And I gave him my feeding notes from the moment that I got him up until the day that I was texting him. And when he shed and everything, he's like, "Holy shit, you keep track of all that?" And I was like, "That's the least that I keep track of." And it's almost to the point where I spend too much time with it. But yeah, I think note taking's important. Do you mind if I want to address a question I see on the comments here?
yeah, go ahead.
It says, I don't know what you're referring to and don't want specifics, but can you offer advice on what to look out for? In terms of if the question was in regards to advice for newcomers to the reptile community, if they're still on here, I'll wait for a minute for that answer.
Well, even
Um,
if they're not, you can, because they can come back and watch it.
okay, yeah. So I guess new advice to my advice to newcomers. So that was one of those advice that I gave not too bit ago. So try to look in the future and try to keep your animals the way that you want to keep them 10 years from now and try to start there. I know it's easy to start on a tiny budget and try to do things to convenience yourself, but the moment that we convenience ourselves instead of doing what's best for the snakes is when we start tripping up. Um, and then secondly is don't stop learning and don't think that you know everything. I've been breeding for 2 seasons, only been keeping retics for 4, and I still don't know a damn thing about retics. And I get excited for what I learn every single day. And just lastly, it's just if you think you're spending a lot of time with your retics, you're not. Spend more. Because the more time you spend with your retics, the more you learn them, the more you learn your behavior, the more you're going to avoid accidents, and the more that you're going to learn to appreciate them or not. Because I know some people that I've spoken to that got out of retics and they thought they loved them for 4 years, and after 4 years, they realize no, retics are stressful. I don't want to deal with it anymore.
And it's a lot of snake to deal with. Um, and you think a lot of people think they can handle it, but they don't. They're not going to know until it's the time is there when they're actually dealing with a big snake, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And to add to what you were saying, which was great advice and whatnot, but is don't look at your animals like a dollar sign.
Mm-hmm.
The if you get to the point where you're growing with your animal and you understand these animals and you want to get to the point where you want to breed because you want to experience that whole thing,
Bringing
and
life into the world.
that's, you know don't but do it because you have a passion and you want to learn and you want to see this, you want to experience these things. If you're a good person, you take care of your animals just like you were saying, and everything, you're gonna that's gonna come. You're gonna have a name. People are gonna know that you're a good person. They're gonna know that you take care of your animals. Nobody Well, I would hope nobody would want to buy an animal from somebody who's taking shit care of them. You know what I mean? So don't, like I said, don't follow his advice and don't look at them as a dollar sign.
Mm-hmm. And even to speak, the original question was advice for newcomers to the reptile community. If we're talking about newcomers, like to the reptile community in general, is my advice is don't settle on an animal because someone tells you it's better to keep this animal first before you keep the other animal. Always get what you love, but just make sure you do your due diligence and get some hands-on experience, and you find a mentor, and you, whether it's one mentor or five, I don't care. A lot of breeders have the mindset that, like, a lot of old school keepers are like, no, listen to one person, do what that one person says until you figure out your way, and then you have your own method. But I was the opposite. I took my methods from four different mentors and formulated it to what I do now. And even then I still go out and look to people for more advice. But if you're new to the reptile industry, whatever animal that made you fall in love with the reptile industry, as long as it's reasonable animal to keep. And what I mean by that is, like, if you fell in love with a Komodo dragon, don't go buy a Komodo dragon. Like, just no, don't do that. Or even like a croc monitor, like, don't do that. But like, I hear a lot of people like retics are really bad for snake pet, and I tend to disagree with that. There are more consequences with retics if you don't know what you're doing. But if you love retics and that's why you want a snake, don't go buy a ball python because you need experience with snakes. No, because a ball python is not going to prepare you for a retic. I don't care what anybody says. Like, it might prepare you on learning how to use a thermostat. Cool. Like, but at the end of the day, if you want a retic, or if you want any snake and you're new to the reptile industry, go get that snake, but just make sure you know about that snake and you know people with them, and you can get some experience and actually see what they are in person. Just follow your passion and don't settle for less, because that's what people are telling you to do. Just learn about what it is that you love, and when you feel ready, pull the trigger.
Exactly, and like you said, try to get try to get advice from as many good people. Don't try to find out if they're a fuck dummy first. If they're fucktarded, don't get advice from them, but take advice from as many good keepers as you possibly can. At the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing. Really, we're cleaning shit. We're doing this. Some people prefer paper. Some people use cypress mulch, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, the end process is the same.
Yep.
There's all kinds of different ways to take care of your animals correctly.
100%.
And
There's no one
you,
way.
at the
It's
end of the
not
day,
cookie
what you
cutter.
do is you get all the advice. And like I said, then you find you do what's best for you and your animal.
Yep.
But yes, sir, I agree 100%.
Yep. No cookie cutter way to keep retics.
Lucas, are you there, buddy?
You hear me?
Hello. Oh, shit.
You hear me?
Can you hear me? If you can hear me, how about get out of this and then come back in? Hey guys. Huh. Well, let's see if he comes back. Everybody's staring at me. Shit. There we go. There we go.
Cool. All right. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I was literally talking and I could hear you fine. Yeah.
Well, you have anything you want to add, buddy? Anything you want to talk about?
Um, man, I think we covered a lot. I really enjoyed being here, and again, thank you so much for the invite. Chip, we'll have to chat sometime soon. I'd love watching the YouTube channel and hearing what you both have to say. And yeah, I'd love to connect with you as well, Chip.
Um, okay, well, we're gonna probably call it a night. I will. I'm gonna say a couple things. Um, Going forward, we're gonna be trying to make a video every Thursday. Um, just about every Thursday. That being said, um, thanks for coming on, man. This was good stuff. Um, Once again, everybody, please look into becoming a member of USARC if you are not a member yet. Even if you don't want to be a member, donate some money if you can. If you're at a local show and you see a U.S. Art table, give them $1. Buy a shirt, buy a sticker. Spread the
If you're
word.
not a member, message me. I'll help you get a bronze membership.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I think that a lot of people that are breeding and stuff like that. I know Aubrey does stuff. I know some other breeders have. If you buy an animal, from them or whatever like that, they'll with that money they help you become a member, which is good stuff.
I saw that, and I want to start doing something similar. I donated 10% of my income to. I didn't I didn't advertise that or anything. I did send 10% over to US ARC of what I was getting. And then in addition to that, anytime I was shipping boxes out to people, I was maxing out the amount that I could. Right now they have a system error where I sent a large amount of boxes out and they're like, how much would you like to donate? And I was like, let's do $150. And they were like, oh, the max amount is only 20. So I started doing them individually, $20 for each box. They need to fix that so that ship your reptile so that they can uh make that more.
Exactly. U.S. Art people, spread the word. Let's do it because
Yeah.
we're gonna have to. We got to do it. We all have to get together and we have to do it. Also, thank you for everybody's support. Please
Like,
help me out. Like it.
subscribe.
Subscribe to the channel. Um, share it. Whatever all that good stuff. Please definitely like it. Um, what the hell? What was I going to say? I then forgot what the hell I was going to say. But anyhow, once again, thanks everybody. Really appreciate it. Also, send us messages. You can send us messages on topics that you want to hear, or somebody that you want us to bring on, whatever the case may be. But that's it, buddy.
I'll
Thanks a
be
lot.
sleeping in your DMs.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, bud.
Yeah. Thanks so
Thanks for
much for
coming
the
on, man.
invite. Have a good night, man.
Yes. Bye.